Hi, I'm Reverend Rodrigo Solano, the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Olinda, and I'm here to bring the church closer to you. The role of ministry is often described as work of service. And in a community of faith, that can mean many things, including leading Sunday services. This is a ministry that is often also shared with lay leaders. Now, as many of you might do at different times of your lives, I have also held a job in what is indeed formally called the service industry, literally serving food or drink. And sometimes members of our community fulfill that role at our church gatherings, when some of us serve food for the community, along with taking care of the other logistical aspects that this entails, like setting up the space, cleaning up, taking down. In other words, we serve each other at our church in many kinds of ways. Some sound more literal than others, but they are all kinds of service. Unlike some among you, I have done this in a semi-professional way. For a couple of years, I held a part-time job with an event staffing agency. In other words, we were freelance butlers of sorts. And that's what we called each other in our agency's cultures, the butlers. And our jobs included table and bar service for different kinds of events, from small house parties to large gala dinners. And yes, in addition to my license to solemnize marriages, I also have a Smart Serve certificate. In other words, a bartending license. Now, one of the gigs that I once worked at was a private fundraising dinner. It was a schmancy affair at a swanky home in a high-end Toronto neighborhood. The menu had been meticulously chosen. The desserts looked like works of art, and the decor was fancifully laid out with purpose-made mood lighting, flower arrangements, a color theme, and trendy candle holders that were whimsically suspended inside cute bird cages around the main guest table. The meal service was pretty standard: hors d'oeuvres, cocktails, sit-down time, salad, main course, schmancy dessert. We'd done this plenty of times. After cocktails and sit-down, my fellow butlers lined up to serve the salad. A small platoon of us filed out and each of us served the diners, 2 plates at a time. Now, just as I was rounding the halfway point around the table, I suddenly found myself seeing stars and then felt a warm drip around my ear and side of the face. It turns out that I had crashed into a bird cage. The kind of bird cage that held an hour's worth of melted paraffin wax, which was now dripping down my side onto my agency-approved black vest, black tie, black shirt, and black pants uniform. Also, it was on my hair. In a moment of crisis management brilliance, I arranged for a co-working butler to serve the rest of my allotted salad while I sheepishly walked over to my supervisor, with wax slowly hardening on my clothes, to explain the situation and fill out the OSHA-mandated incident report. My supervisor was graceful enough. She didn't make a big deal out of it, but did helpfully suggest that I relieve my colleague on dish duty so that they may take my place on table duty, as my uniform was no longer up to industry standard. While no blame was named, I did feel rather foolish at my misstep, And many questions came to mind as I started piling dirty dishes into plastic bins. How did I not see the birdcage? Could I have avoided the birdcage? Why am I the only one to have crashed into the birdcage? My relationship with the birdcage featured deeply into my sense of ineptness at my job of putting down plates of salad. I felt foolish and had existential questions about my ability to perform in the service industry. At some point into the main course, one of my senior colleagues joined me on dish duty. Turns out that the seemingly static birdcage had a way of sneaking up on people. With a slightly banged up head and an even more banged up ego, my colleague's company offered me an odd comfort. I may have been a fool, but I wasn't the only one. A few minutes into dessert, my supervisor walked into the kitchen. "The photographer just got waxed," she declared. A very professional looking fellow with silver hair and an expensive camera walked in. Paraffin featured heavily on his corduroy jacket. He was talking about how he would word the invoice for dry cleaning. By that point, I no longer felt foolish. It was clear to me that it wasn't a matter of me absently bumping into a birdcage or my colleague being equally clumsy. In other words, the problem was systemic. Something about the layout in the venue's decor lent itself to workers being whacked on the head and waxed over their bodies and clothes. Now, I believe that the interior decorator for this particular event never had it in their program plan to harm workers, or specifically to spill hot paraffin over them. I am convinced that that particular outcome was never part of their intent. And yet, their layout had a measurable impact on the people responsible for making the event happen. Some of us were newbies, like me, but it also included more seasoned service staff, as well as a full-out professional with years of experience. It wasn't a matter of an individual's personal ability or shortcomings. It was the structure in place that was inherently problematic and prone to cause harm to an entire category of people involved in the event. In this case, the service workers. My friends, in our communities, our living covenant calls on us to grow into awareness toward nurturing right relations with each other. The examples of the silver, gold, and platinum rules offer us perspective on the kinds of questions we can ask of ourselves and others when deciding how we can treat those around us. Examining how we love ourselves, how we can love our neighbors responsibly, and moreover, how we can allow the wider community and the systems in it to foster loving, safe spaces. Spaces where we can be mindful of our intentions and their impacts, and spaces where we can hold each other accountable, not just as individuals, but as a community. My friends, as we continue to build beloved community, we may grow into awareness of how our separate selves collectively make the space for warmth and light. In solidarity, so may it be. In other words, Amen.